So guys, another championship season has come to its conclusion. Loads to talk about, let's jump into it. Welcome back to another video on the channel, guys. Now, the final day of the championship season did not disappoint. If you've not seen my reaction video to the Sheffield Wednesday against Derby game, go and check that out. We uploaded that the other day and it was absolutely bonkers. We had 48 goals scored across the 12 matches on the final weekend. As always, want to get your guys' thoughts on it all in the comments down below. But before we get into anything, let's take a look at who's been crowned champion of the Prediction League for the second half of the season. And I have to say a huge congratulations to Luke RP, who snuck into that #1 spot on the last day of the season with a grand total of 200 points for the second half of the season. Absolute scenes here. It was ridiculously close around the top of the Prediction League, and for the first time Luke RP stays into the #1 spot, having a good game week, picking up 8 points. So Jude Vest FC was obviously the champion of the first half of the season, and Luke RP takes that title for the second half of the season. Also keep your eyes open on the community tab, as I will be posting the full Prediction League for the first and second half of the season to find out who the overall champion of this first year we've done it for is. Well, fair play to Luke. Drop your Twitter or an email in the comments down below and we'll sort you out with something. In the end, League One was as close as ever, and it was Edward Vine who went ahead and won the League One Prediction League in the end, coming in with 181 points. And then Harrison Wingate went ahead and won League Two in the end with a grand total of 170 points. So congratulations to everyone who did find themselves on that prediction leaderboard. It's been loads of fun to do it this year. But without any further ado, let's talk about some of these matches. So starting out at Oakwell, in the end it finished Barnsley 2, Norwich 2, and quite an entertaining game in the end actually. As you can see to the side of it was Barnsley who had a lot of the chances going forward for this one. Colton Morris does well for the first goal. The second goal brilliantly taken. It was a wonderful ball in by Callum Stiles, and Chaplin gets on the end of it, but obviously Emi Buendia and ultimately Adamida with the equaliser for Norwich. Now what's most interesting is the playoff picture did actually switch around on the final day, so now it will be Brentford going up against Bournemouth and Swansea going up against Barnsley, and I kind of like the way that the playoffs has been formatted in that way, because it's sort of like Swansea against Barnsley are sort of, I'd say, the two underdogs going into the top 6 this season, whereas Bournemouth is that previous Premier League club and Brentford obviously is the team that's finished third this season, have sort of been the favourites. So we're going to get, in either scenario, depending on who wins in each semi-final, we're going to get one of the favourites going up against one of the underdogs in some way. So I kind of like how the playoffs is formatted. Barnsley fans, let me know down below how you fancying your chances in the playoffs against Swansea. Next then to Ewood Park, we have Blackburn 5, Birmingham 2. Now, as a lot of us had come to expect, Birmingham put out a much changed side for this game once again. A lot of the youngsters involved, and I think their inexperience probably told at times. They did actually take the lead through Pedersen, but after that Blackburn completely took over. Adam Armstrong with a hat-trick in this game probably added a few more million to his price tag. I'm sure there'll be a few Premier League clubs sniffing around him come the summer, but yeah, Blackburn by far and away showing their experience. We sort of mentioned that their forward line would have a bit of a field day in this one, coming up against a bit of an inexperienced Birmingham side. Truman, who is in net for Birmingham, I think we'll probably watch back a couple of the goals, especially Armstrong's last two, and thinking, okay, I probably should have done better with them too, but nevertheless, Blackburn signing off in style. 29 goals this season for Adam Armstrong, really strong campaign for him. Next then to Bournemouth up against Stoke. Stoke walking away with all 3 points on the final day of the season. It's not obviously been the best end of the season for Stoke, but finishing it with a win nonetheless. A couple of decent goals scored in this one. Forrester, the youngster, with the first goal, really well taken actually, sort of hits it on the spin, lovely finish, and then Smith in the second half wraps things up. Now, coming into this game, I really thought that Bournemouth would be quite fired up for this one, because I thought that they want to do everything that they could to avoid Brentford in the semi-finals. You know, I thought that Bournemouth would have quite liked to have a tie against Swansea over 2 legs, because they'd probably fancied their chances in that one. But I don't know, it's an interesting tie now, isn't it? And Bournemouth coming into this game, on paper, put out a pretty strong lineup for this one as well. They just didn't really show up. You can see to the side of me how much of the ball they had, but the lack of chances that actually came from all that possession in the end. It was Stoke who were a lot more efficient in the final third. Now, that is now 3 consecutive defeats for Bournemouth heading into the playoffs, and Brentford obviously on a decent unbeaten run at the moment. So Bournemouth fans, after coming off that fantastic winning streak, the form has tailed off slightly since that playoff spot has been confirmed, How are you feeling at this current moment going into a semi-final against Brentford? Let me know down below. And speaking of Brentford, they were victorious on the final day of the season, beating Bristol City quite comfortably, really, by 3-1 in the end. We also had Ivan Toney breaking the Championship goal-scoring record with 31 goals and 10 assists to go along with it this season. Absolutely remarkable stuff there from Ivan Toney in his first full season at this level. Now, the playoff picture is a very interesting one because I think that whoever wins the semi-final tie between Brentford and Bournemouth probably goes into the final as the favourites. For me, do you guys agree with that? Let me know down below. I think that we've always sort of seen like Swansea and Barnsley as a bit more of an underdog. So it's going to be fantastic to see one of the favourites pitted against one of the underdogs in the final, whatever the outcome of the semi-final is. And you have to say that Brentford coming into the whole thing are probably the favourites at the moment. They've got form on their side. They're unbeaten in their last 12. I think that Thomas Frank needs to be given a bit of credit for how he's tinkered with the system a little bit since they've gone to that 3 at the back system. Their last defeat in the league came to league leaders Norwich, and since then they've been pretty good. Brentford obviously were successful in their last game against Bournemouth as well, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to that tie. Next up then to Cardiff 1, Rotherham 1, the result ultimately relegating Rotherham back to League 1. I think this is now the 5th consecutive season where Rotherham have either been promoted from League 1 or relegated from the Championship, and I mean, what makes this even harder to take, I think, is the fact that Derby didn't win this weekend, and so Rotherham did have it in their own hands should they have won this game to go ahead and survive, and the chances they had in this one as well. I mean, it was almost a perfect start for them. Lewis Wing with the opening goal, and what a hit it was, by the way. The amount of time it takes for that ball to come down, he hits it perfectly, and we all know Lewis Wing doesn't score tap-ins. Wonderful way to open the scoring, and from then on you felt like if Rotherham got that second goal, which they probably should have with some of the opportunities that they got themselves into, that would have been game done. I didn't see Cardiff coming back from 2 goals behind, but the more it remained at 1 and the more chances they were missing, I think everyone had that feeling in the back of their mind that Cardiff were going to get a goal from somewhere, and in the end that came through Marlon Pack. And it's almost been the story of Rotherham's season, really, of missed opportunities when they've got themselves into good positions but not been able to capitalise on things. I mean, it's another learning experience of them being in the Championship, but ultimately a 23rd finish isn't what they came here for this season. Next up then we had Coventry 6, Millwall 1. What a way for Coventry to sign off the season in style. They were absolutely relentless going forward in this one, and when I had originally seen the scoreline and that Coventry had put 6 past them, I had it in the back of my mind and I thought that, okay, because I hadn't seen the Millwall lineup at that point, and I thought that, okay, they probably made 11 changes, similar to how Birmingham have done in their last couple of matches, and their youngsters just got, you know, beat by the better side. But Millwall put out a strong team for this one. It was quite possibly one of the most half-arsed defensive performances that we've ever seen. Being on the beach, I think, was probably the definition for this one, because there was just an inability to have any sort of reaction to wanting to get towards second balls. Balls coming into the box from Coventry caused all sorts of problems, but a few standout performers from Coventry in this one. Matty James got a couple of assists and a goal for himself. O'Hare, like he has been throughout the season, was brilliant for Coventry going forward as well. Shipley got a goal and assist for himself as well. Brilliant stuff from Coventry in this game, who obviously will be a Championship club going into next season as well. For Millwall, it's not exactly the sort of memory that you want to leave your fans with over the summer, getting beat 6-1 on the final day, is it? Next up then to the big one, Derby 3, Sheffield Wednesday 3, in one of the most bonkers relegation battles that we've ever seen in the Championship on the final day. This one took so many twists and turns in terms of each team being out of the relegation zone at different points and things like that. The first half of football wasn't great, to be honest with you. Derby probably edged it in terms of the chances. Wycombe had one where he smashed his head against the post, and you know, in most circumstances the player probably goes off after that stage, but it's good that he didn't, because he was absolutely crucial for Derby in the second half. But despite Derby having a couple of chances in that first half, it was Wednesday who took the lead through Hutchinson. Whatever Rooney said at half-time obviously got a bit of an instant reaction, because Derby came out like a completely different side. It was Wycombe with the equaliser, and then Roberts with a wonderful goal from outside the box. He had one sort of glimmer of a chance in the first half, but wonderfully taken with his left foot. Sheffield Wednesday then get back into the game. You know, Craig Forsyth really had a bit of a howler for this one in terms of a couple goals that Derby conceded, and then obviously Julian Borner then takes the lead for Sheffield Wednesday, and then within a matter of seconds Cardiff equalise against Rotherham and Derby get a penalty and convert it to make it 3-3, which was ultimately enough to keep them up. Now, I mean, when we're talking about a team surviving by the skin of their teeth, that was certainly Derby this season. I mean, they've won 1 of their last 15 Championship matches. It wasn't pretty, but they've done just about enough to get over the line. Now, Derby fans, I'm very interested to hear your views on this first of all. what's your verdict on Wayne Rooney? What are your thoughts going into next season with him? Because there's a massive restructuring that's coming at that club, you know, sooner rather than later. There has to be. And also, literally, as I'm recording this video, the Daily Mail is currently breaking a story about the EFL winning an appeal against Derby in terms of them breaching financial fair play regulations. Now, in terms of what the sanction could be for Derby, it's unclear at this point in time. It could result in a point deduction, obviously. We had this rumbling on last season with Sheffield Wednesday, and obviously the implications of if that point deduction was to be applied to them, you know, last season, and Charlton would have ended up surviving and that sort of thing. It looks like we're going to get a bit of a repeat of that this year as the drama will continue to unfold, but yeah, it's a story which I'll continue to sort of look into. And of course, commiserations to Sheffield Wednesday fans as well. You know, had they got that one more goal, that would have done it for survival. Such fine margins in the end. And I think that Sheffield Wednesday, probably quite similar to Rotherham actually, will look back on moments and opportunities that have been missed throughout the season, whether that be conceding that late goal against Rotherham, not taking chances, dropping silly points here and there, you know, getting silly red cards at times which have cost them. And there's also quite the restructuring that's coming at Sheffield Wednesday as well. I think I may do a little bit of League One content going into next season because there are some pretty big clubs that are in League One at the moment and that we've sort of been covering on the channel over these last few years. But yeah, I do hope to see Sheffield Wednesday back in the Championship sooner rather than later. And the same can be said for Wycombe as well, who have been brilliant in these last few weeks. 3-0 against Borough on the final day of this season. We all knew it would take a bit of a miracle for them to survive at the end, but I mean, I don't want to come across as like too patronising or anything like that, but to come within 1 point of survival for Wycombe in the end, it's been some achievement after, you know, a lot of people sort of saying, you know, this could be like the worst Championship side we've ever seen at the start of the season. After they'd lost their first 7 matches, we were all thinking it was going to go one way, you know, we were thinking they were going to be relegated by March or something like that, didn't we? But I mean, Wycombe have showed more fight and togetherness in that squad than any of the other teams in the bottom of the Championship, I'd say, even more so than Derby, who've gone ahead and survived in the end. And had the, you know, Championship been 1 game week longer, Wycombe probably would have gone ahead and done it. You know, it was just that slow start in the end and that time that it took them to adapt to this new level, which has ended up costing them, because in the end they've been more than competitive. And I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens now with Gareth Ainsworth. I think there's going to be quite a bit of interest in him. His stock is fairly high at the moment. Yeah, it'll be a fascinating one to see what happens with Wycombe over the summer, because I think that that decision about whether Ainsworth goes and stays is obviously going to have massive knock-on effects throughout the club. But yeah, I do wish Wycombe all the best from here on in. After that, we then had North End beating Forest by 2-1. Bit of a game of two halves with this one, really. Forest certainly had the better of the first half, and James Garner wonderfully took his goal outside the box, lines it up and bends it into the far post. Everson had absolutely no chance with that one. Knockout tried to conjure up some chances from outside the box as well. Forest probably could have had another goal in that half, but second half North End managed to turn it around. Lovely ball from Ryan Ledson for the first goal, nice dummy from Ched Evans. Scott Sinclair runs onto it and Tam Bayliss gets a bit of a tap in on the goal line. The second goal, there was quite a bit of controversy about this one, I can't lie. The flag originally goes up for offside on Alan Brown, who doesn't touch the ball but is interfering with play. Then later on from that move, Preston go ahead and score through Liam Lindsay. Obviously Forest weren't too happy about that one, but I mean, such is the life in the Championship. With the state of officiating, I think we've all been on the end of a few bad decisions throughout the season, haven't we? And in the end, that was enough for North End to wrap up all 3 points. And you have to say, Frankie McAvoy's done an excellent job in, you know, putting his name in for the permanent position. He couldn't have really done much more. And speaking of Frankie McAvoy, literally as I've just finished recording today's video, Preston have actually offered him the job as the full-time head coach, and I definitely got a few thoughts on this one. I mean, listen, Frankie McAvoy literally couldn't have done much more to go ahead and put his name in the ring. In the 8 games he's been in charge for, we've had 5 wins, 2 draws and just the 1 loss, so a 62.5% win percentage is absolutely magnificent, and considering where we were when he took over, guiding us to a 13th place finish, which was, you know, quite respectable considering where we were a couple of months ago. However, the pressures from being sort of an interim manager from the end of the season to being the main man on a full-time basis obviously brings its different pressures and things like that. So North End fans, I'd be interested to know what you guys think of this one down below. I think that the majority of us feel like it is a little bit of a gamble of an appointment. However, we're all behind Frankie, and you know, the work that he's done so far, you can tell that he's quite a positive person. He's got everyone feeling quite good around the club at the moment, and he's obviously someone who has his own set of fresh ideas. You know, despite working with Alex Neil for pretty much his whole coaching career since he's been at Hamilton, Frankie definitely has his own thoughts about how things should be done and things like that, because there has obviously been a quite clear sort of stylistic change since Alex Neil's departure, and Frankie McAvoy was promoted to that number 1 spot. A comparison that I think a lot of people will make will be to Dean Holden and Lee Johnson last season at Bristol City. Obviously, when Lee Johnson departed from Bristol City, Dean Holden was given the job until the end of the season and did fairly well for them, you know, got a couple of wins for them. He was then given the job on a full-time basis, and heading into the next season, after that sort of initial honeymoon period, things didn't really work out, and you know, it was quite clear that he wasn't going to be the main man for Bristol City on a long-term basis. So yeah, time will tell with this one with Frankie McAvoy. He's obviously someone who has a massive job to do in terms of the rebuild that's coming at North End over the summer, but I'm excited to see how it goes. At that win, had QPR 3, Luton Town 1. Nice way for QPR to sign off the season with another win, and how flawless have they been in this second half of the season. Really interested to see if they manage to keep hold of this group of players over the summer and get these loanees back for next season, because if they do, I mean, they could have a really good crack at the playoffs for next season. But an interesting game nonetheless. It was Austin with the opener for QPR. After that, Luton had quite a prolonged period on top where they could have had a couple of goals, to be honest with you. Dewsbury Hall gets Luton back into the game, makes it 1-1 before half time. Nice way for him to sign out at Luton. Also, I thought, you know, I think it's going to be tough for Luton to get him back next season with just how good he's actually been for them this time around. And then second half, Luton never really seemed to get going. QPR had those couple of moments of quality going forward. Johansson and Adoma winning it in the final few moments. But yeah, overall, I think that both QPR and Luton fans will look back on this season with quite a bit of fondness. I think they both made significant progress from last season, and it's all about building on this going into next season now. Running up against Huddersfield ultimately finished 2-2, and it was the story of each their young starlets stealing the show for this one. Josh Koroma opening the scoring for Huddersfield with a brilliantly taken free kick. How good has he been since getting back up to full fitness for Huddersfield? Really looking forward to seeing what he can do next season. But on the other side, it was Michael Elise. Tucked away the penalty to make it 1-1, and a brilliant assist to put Reading in front. Swings in a cross at the first time of asking with his left foot to the far post. Yakumete gets on the end of it, makes it 2-1 to Reading, and then Huddersfield equalise in the 93rd minute through Edmonds Green. I'm very interested to see what happens at these two clubs over the summer transfer window. I think I'll do a bit of a video in terms of where every Championship clubs needs to strengthen and the sort of players that they need to keep hold of, because you do feel like there'll be quite a bit of movement from each of these going forward. And then to finish things off, we had Watford 2, Swansea 0, so a nice way for Watford to sign off from the Championship. Andre Gray and Isaac Success with the goal. Success's goal, by the way, lovely, smash into the far post. But Swansea weren't all too bad in this game, to be honest with you. They put out a fairly strong 11, asked some questions of Watford, just didn't quite manage to get anything over the line. But despite losing, they have managed to hang on to 4th place and will now be playing Barnsley in the playoffs, which, like we were mentioning before with Barnsley, I think it's quite an interesting tie actually. I think it's both underdogs of the playoffs sort of pitted up against each other, so whoever makes it into the final from that tie, it's going to be a really interesting one, isn't it? Swansea fans, let me know down below, how are you fancying your chances against Barnsley? Because as the season has gone on so far, it is Swansea who does have the head-to-head advantage in this game. They beat Barnsley twice this season, doing the double over them with 2-0 wins in each match. So, I mean, that's on Swansea's side. We'll wait and see, but it should be a good semi-final, that one. But there we have it, guys. That will wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for watching and for all the support on the season in general. At the end of the week, I'll have my playoff semi-final first leg predictions coming out, so make sure to stay tuned for that. We've also got absolutely loads of content coming out over the next few weeks in terms of some end of season stuff. Got quite a few fun ones coming out, so make sure to stick around and stay tuned for all of them. But apart from that, thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.